This is very nice. On behalf of the staff and the board of the Berry Center, can you all hear me? Let me turn this a little bit, yeah. On behalf of the staff and the board of the Berry Center, I am delighted to welcome you all to Newcastle, the county seat of Henry County, Kentucky. My name is Mary Berry. I am the director of the Berry Center. I believe you all have received a handout that gives some information about the work going on at the center. I hope you'll have a look at it so that I can keep this short by simply saying that we are continuing my family's work by advocating for small farmers in their communities. We are putting my father Wendell's writing to work for the place and the people he has honored all his life. Now, I want to first say that we have some dignitaries with us this afternoon. They are the mayor and the first lady of Minooka, Illinois, Rick and Kathy Offerman. Right over here, ladies and gentlemen. They're also seated with my mother, Tanya, my daughter, other dignitaries, my Aunt Marky, other dignitaries. This is, in fact, yes, indeed. This is, in fact, the world headquarters of the Berry Center. And so it is quite fitting that Nick Offerman is kicking off his international book tour with us in what we like to call the center of the universe. Years ago, I was told that someone named Nick Offerman had called the Berry Center to talk to me. It seems to me that it took a while for us to actually talk, and I remember the first sentence that he spoke to me, and it was, "Hello, Mary, this is Nick Offerman." Now that was the only public impersonation I've ever done, and is also going to be the last. We talked about the movie Look and See, which he was producing, my father's writing, and what we were doing at the center. He spoke of my father's work in such an intelligent way that I knew he had actually read it and cared about it, in fact, loved it. Looking back, it seems to me now that I knew that we would be friends, good friends, and that is just what we have been for a decade or so. Family, really. Nick has been a stalwart friend of the Berry Center and the work that we do. He has supported it, talked about it, encouraged it in every way he can. And I, in turn, have stood ready to help him out with his career any way that I can. He and I are starring together in a documentary called Fork in the Road, which will probably not be coming to theaters near you, but out somewhere soon. I fought hard to get him a role, and I think it might have led to his Emmy-winning work in The Last of Us. And since I'm up here and I have the mic, I can say pretty much anything I want. Nick has written 6 books, and they are all worth your while, every one of them. We are here today to celebrate the publication of Little Woodchucks. It is all of the things that Nick is: funny, intelligent, so sweet, slightly irreverent, or maybe very, and such a necessary voice in our world today. Imagine a happy, funny book with wonderful pictures that encourages children to work with tools, learn important skills, spend time with the grown-ups they love and who love them. That is what this book is, but it also teaches what these young people need to know to take part in the real world so that they don't grow up to be cogs in the machine that Paul Kingsnorth talked about here Thursday night. My father calls it the industrialization of our economy and our culture, of everything. He says on page 93 of Little Woodchucks, and I'm quoting, "So once you have built your truck and trailer or trailers, think about where you will drive them to pick up your logs, if logs end up being your cargo. Maybe do a little research to find out what the lumber business near you practices sustainable forestry, and utilize them rather than the giant, rapacious corporate logging firms that care so much more about their profits than the health or longevity of the forest and its ecosystem. I can't wait to hear how many trailers you can pull with one truck. And don't forget to leave room for sausages, unquote. This is an important book for children. My father says, it is easy to imagine that the next great division of the world will be between people who wish to live as creatures and people who wish to live as machines. Do any of us want or imagine that our children or grandchildren will live as machines? Books helped me raise my children, and this book will help you raise yours. I am so delighted to welcome Nick Offerman.
Thank you very much. Hello there. I'm glad you have a rug because you're probably going to get a nice nap in once I start talking. This is the fast, loud part. Thank you so much for that generous introduction, Mary. And it made me quite emotional. That quote is incredible, that the division is people who want to live as creatures or people who want to live as machines. We were talking about Mary visited Los Angeles recently, and especially in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills, we have a lot of actual driverless cars now. It's a company called Waymo, and they're like Uber, they're like taxis, but they literally have no driver. And it's just really upsetting, I think. If you have a flat tire and you want to flag somebody down, they didn't think about that. They weren't designed with good manners in mind. So this is my first stop on my book tour. Thank you for being my guinea pigs. Thank you. That could be the peak of the applause, so if it's all right with you, I'm just going to bask in it for a second and remember how nice that felt. Let's see. I think I'll start with a song and temper your expectations. These songs are in the workshop stage, but hopefully you can bop along. Now, I was going to include this song on the audiobook, but the nice people at the Disney Corporation had their lawyers call and say, please don't do that or we'll sue you. And so now I think we should all boycott the Disney Corporation. Because of all the income I would have cost them. I keep putting this bastardization of their song on my audiobook. Has anybody seen Mary Poppins? Yeah? This might sound familiar then, and I made up some different words, but you're still welcome to try and sing along. And if you want to get up and dance, it won't hurt my feelings. Can you hear that? Any twit can purchase a drone with just a credit card number and phone. It'll come in a box with your dog food and socks and requires little skill to be flown. But a kite that you can make with your hands requires time, creativity, and plans. But that's half of the fun, and my friend, when it's done, there'll be no other one that is quite like your kite. Oh, 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 let's go make a kite. We're inventive, skilled, and bright. Let all the morons play with their drones from Walmart. My left butt cheek they all can bite, 'cause we made a frickin' kite. Let's all go make a kite. Sweet licks. That was the guitar solo. You can applaud. You can clap. Now these drones, they all look the same. with their joyless propellers and frame, while your kite you'll embellish with imaginative relish, with rainbows or crossbones or flames. A kite only brings splendor and calm, and a kite's never once dropped a bomb. It brings beauty and love, never death from above. So when push comes to shove, I say give me a kite. Whoa, 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 let's go make a kite and shun the electronic blight. There's no batteries needed to send it soaring. Oh, what a gorgeous sight. Craft and artistry taking flight. Let's all go make a kite. Let's make a kite. A beautiful kite. Let's make a kite. Thank you. Flawless. I thought I would make mistakes, but sometimes you get lucky. Now, in this book, if you're young and you want to start making things out of wood, there are two things I recommend. One of them is, now at my house, when sometimes the bread gets stuck in the toaster, and it's very dangerous to reach in there with anything to get the bread out. So there's a wooden set of tongs that you can make in this book. They're really easy to make, and suddenly you can safely pull out your toast, and so you could open a toast shop. Think about it. You can make money with this book. And the other thing is called a box kite. And when you see this, I'm telling you, it is an absolute blast, with some long dowel rods and some wine corks and some glue and paper. You can build this kite that is super fun, and because it has big panels of paper, you can decorate it in any way you want. And I've crunched the numbers, and in public, people generally prefer you don't put naked people on the kite. Otherwise, pretty much anything goes. Now, you're welcome to listen to this, but if you want to take a little nap, it won't hurt my feelings, because I'm going to read from the book, and it might feel like bedtime. This is from the introduction. Before I dig in, let me just say a couple words about how this book came to be. In Mary's introduction, she mentioned she was very generous. This is my 6th book, and if she's going to tout all 6 of my books, then I have to say my 4th book was written with my estimable bride, Megan Mullally. And by with, it means she drove the Corvette and I rode shotgun and occasionally suggested turning right or left. And this book is similar. I co-wrote it with this woman named Lee Buchanan, who used to run my wood shop for many years. And she's a cool Berkeley kid. She has 2 little boys of her own, and so I'm actually working on a song about Lee, and the whole point of the song is you make everything, and I put my name on it, and we call that a collaboration. Speaking of, thank you very much to Ben and Rick for setting up this beautiful display. The head of your forestry department is also a very talented woodworker. And so, lest you suspect any of this cleverness belongs to me, it's all theater. And that's what my degree is actually in. So Lee and I were both brought up in households where we learned to make things with our hands. And I'm going to talk about that in my introduction in a second. But we both have had very happy lives living with people who make things with their hands. Now, obviously, I'm talking about making things out of wood, but you can make all kinds of things with your hands, and I find it's a lot more fun to do that with my family than to sit and look at my technology. That's briefly fun and diversionary, but you don't have any lasagna at the end of that. Here's a little bit of the introduction to my book. Hello, Little Woodchucks. My name is Nick, and I am a larger, grown-up woodchuck. But at heart, I will always be one of you because it's more fun. I like to stay curious and learn new things and to laugh with my fellow woodchucks, including my wife, Megan, who is pretty foxy for a woodchuck. I also love to make things with my hands, and I love to be with people who make things with their hands, because one of the beautiful things about being a little woodchuck in this life is that you have the gifts of hand-eye coordination and a magical brain that can read directions and comprehend crafting steps and puzzles and come up with wonderful inventions like work boots and lasagna. My family and I have derived a great deal of enjoyment over the years from handcrafting all kinds of stuff. And that's why I love to encourage all people, big and little, to make things with their hands, to use their human superpowers of creativity and crafting to fabricate all manner of things: clothing, toys, weaponry, food. Sausage is a food you can make by hand, and that is an incredible gift to woodchucks large and small. We will hear more about sausage later in the book. Meat plays an important part in the life of my woodshop, and so does music. Ooh, you can make musical instruments out of wood, and then you can make music on the musical instruments. In fact, I wrote a song about making a ukulele so that I would then have to make a ukulele. I'm a simple woodchuck, and so I can trick myself in this way. Now, I have to tell you, my wee woodchuck friends, that playing a song for a couple thousand people on an instrument that I made and hearing them laugh so much at my jokes in the song that they don't even notice I'm not very good at playing music is truly a substantially gratifying delight that I wish for all of you to experience someday, each in your own way. Now, a ukulele traditionally is made of wood. You, my dear readers, can make things out of wood, all sorts of things. That's what the heck we're doing here. Now, I have made many things from wood in my life. I do also like to make things out of yarn and field stone and copper, but therein does not lie my talent. It turns out my personal talent is in making things out of wood, and those mainly with tools. So I've decided to write a book about some beginner-level projects so that you too can learn to make things from wood with your hands and your tools and your magic human brain, with the enchantment you already wield in your hand-eye coordination and your opposable thumbs. Thank you. Pardon me while I retrieve my axe. Sorry about that, got confused. This is my ukulele that I made. It's made of mahogany, and it sounds damn like a ukulele, which was the goal. I've built some boats, and they stay on top of the water, and so no matter how it looks, that's really what you're going for. So I think this could be said to float. Before I play the ukulele song, I'd like to share a joke that my mother told me this morning. It's a woodworking joke. A man has a trouble in his wood shop and cuts off 3 of his fingers on one hand on the table saw, and he goes to the doctor, and the doctor sews him up, and he's going to be okay, but he says, "Doctor, thank you for saving me, but will I ever be able to write again?" And the doctor says, "You will be able to write, but I wouldn't count on it." Thank you, Mother. This is the part where I rock out. Whiskey, you were sent from heaven above, and Ben Franklin said that beer is proof of God's love, but too much of either will earn me a shove from my wife, whom I'd like to stay the husband of. I love beer and whiskey, perhaps a bit too much, given the chance I'd fall off my bar stool daily to keep me out of the pub and also out of Dutch. I make things like this soprano ukulele. Everywhere I go, people staring at a phone, sitting in a crowded room completely alone. It gives me more willies than the Twilight Zone. Our brains are hooked on that stuff like a dog on a bone. Shut off your gadget and look me in the eye, so our interaction can proceed more gaily. Silence your tablet and ejaculate a sigh to the sweetly strumming sounds of ukulele. Ukulele, 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 ukulele. Can you sing with me? Ukulele, 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 ukulele. Now you sing, I'll whistle. Now I'll sing, you whistle. Ukulele, 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 ukulele. All the screens in the world just won't let me be. Life is way too Instagrammy and emaily. So I went to my shop, milled some fine mahogany, and I built this mother-loving ukulele. Ukulele, 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 ukulele. Thank you very much. I can't believe I haven't gotten the hook yet. So the book has 12 projects, and really, you know, it's to make things with and for kids, but it's pretty thinly veiled propaganda for woodchucks of all sizes, because it's a little bit preaching to the choir in this neighborhood more than in my neighborhood of Los Angeles. I'd say most of my adult friends don't know the difference between a Phillips screwdriver and a standard screwdriver. Or, I mean, and I'm not kidding, or people that see me hammer a nail, they look like I just gave birth to a bowling ball. Like, how in the world could you possibly do that? And so it occurred to me that the things that came as a matter of course in my childhood, like taking care of my property and my house and maintaining my vehicle and my clothing and things in my kitchen, other people have been taught to hire people to do that for you. And by now, the corporations have their channels on our phones, so you can hardly live without making a choice. You're like, well, what should we do today? I don't know. What is there an app for what we should do today? What should we order for food? I don't know. Look at our app. And so this is encouraging you to make things with your hands and with your families and do things together in the real world and not in the world of corporations where they take away our agency. I want the choices to remain in our creative brains instead of the menu of what's available at the Walmart, and that's kind of what this is all about. So the projects start very easy, but then they they become more substantial. You can build a sawhorse or a workbench, and it gets up to, have you ever seen those little libraries in a neighborhood? It's like a little structure. It's a lending library, and I've seen them used for other things. So here's a little, that's the final project in the book, and here's a chapter about what I consider a much better use of that idea. Did I mention meat? Have we talked about meat enough? Now, if you're a vegetarian, by the way, just substitute cauliflower anytime you see the word meat, because all denominations are welcome in the woodshop. Now, that said, if your parents have done you the generous service of putting food on the table, then I strongly recommend that you take a swing at cleaning up your plate without being too persnickety about it. Your folks work very hard to keep the meals coming every day of your life, in addition to providing a roof or a burrow over your wee woodchuck head. Now, when I was a little woodchuck, some families had nicer dens and burrows than others, and the cozy domiciles of the wealthier or fatter chucks were festooned in fancier decorations and such. Like, for example, their woodchuck parties always had balloons, and often of more than one color. Their couches boasted lush throws made of cattail velvet, and of course, they kept plenty of delicious meats and cauliflowers in the larder. Now, I was lucky enough to grow up in just such a woodchuck den, and we often had more than we needed, so my folks would often give of their surplus meats and slugs and tubers to others in the mammalian neighborhood who were less fortunate, like the muskrats, for example, and the poor opossums, although they were only poor in certain ways, while very wealthy in others. Now, hear me out. Just like the diversity upon which Mother Nature builds the health of every ecosystem, any neighborhood, woodland or otherwise, will thrive only on diversity. Now, here's an instance of this idea in action. The muskrats down the creek worked more low-income jobs like tunneling, and were often a little short on the groceries for their litter of juvenile muskrats, but some of the neighbors would happily supply them with extra food in exchange for help tunneling out their burrows. The otters were very skilled at providing small fish and also marbles and coins they would find on the bottoms of ponds in exchange for babysitting and dry cleaning their extra pelts. There was even a family of bullfrogs that would sing Mills Brothers songs in the sweetest harmonies upon any and all occasions for the price of a few mere flies and mosquitoes. The diversity of needs and goods and talents is what made the whole system work. You can imagine that if everyone just brought only sardines or dandelions to the table, then the community wouldn't last very long. Any healthy, robust society relies on a variety of cultures to see that all of its citizens properly thrive. Now, over on our woodchuck acreage, besides all the wood we chucked year in and year out, we also kept a herd of grass-fed, belted Galloway cows for beef, and a passel of pigs each season, raised on nothing but the local acorns, mushrooms, and grubs they truffled up with their incessant forest floor snouting. So it's not hard to understand that among the items we would lend were assorted meat goods. But that often presented a problem, since meat will get rotten if it's not properly cured, and we didn't have refrigerators in the burrows. I mean, this was the 1970s, for crying out loud. So instead of electric appliances, we relied on drying and meat smoking techniques as old as time for preserving our meat stuffs. Now, as you might imagine, because of some critters being nocturnal and some diurnal, and others amphibious versus airborne versus landlocked versus underground, it could be quite difficult at times to get together with our neighbors for a food exchange or even just a game of cribbage, which is a card game that grown-ups enjoy. We took to leaving caches of goods for one another in cozy tree hollows and small cave openings so the goods could be accessed and enjoyed at whatever time was convenient for the taker. It was a great system depending on the weather, but sometimes items would be lost or covered over by leaves and forgotten. And so I realized it would be ideal to build a little shelter where we could leave one another the things we hoped to share. And that's how I got the idea for this neighborhood Meatlocker. And I suppose in a pinch you could also use it for books. Thank you. You are all putting up with me very well. I haven't done nearly enough magic. And now that this is my first time doing this, but I think next time I'll bring a magic trick. It's not. I don't need. There's got to be some. All right. I better stop while I'm ahead with the gestures. I read the thing, and then I read the thing about the meat. I have one more song, and then we're going to open it up to questions. And I'll go ahead and answer it for you. If your question is, how's your B minor? It's not great, is the answer. Well, you could while away your years just sitting on your rear, shopping on your phone for your every need. And with an endless flow of crap delivered straight to your lazy lap, you'll be just another pawn for corporate greed. But every trinket, every toy will bring you precious little joy when acquired through a soulless internet transaction. So why spend your hard-earned dough when you can hammer, weld, and sew, and in the process find delicious satisfaction? You can make it yourself and feel the thrill of making use of your knowledge, craft, and skill. Plant a garden, watch it grow, build a birdhouse for your bow. You can hammer, sand, and saw. My friend, you can do it all. Don't be afraid to make it yourself. Now, once upon a time, back before Amazon Prime, when folks all had to make the things they used, they churned butter, knitted shirts, they built cabins, huts, and yurts, and walked proudly through the world in self-made shoes. Folks, now please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying with this song that we should turn the clock back and live like pioneers. But just a touch of self-sufficiency could mitigate the deficiency in the pride of craft we've lost down through the years. So why not make it yourself and feel the pride that in this consumer-driven world you've been denied? Make a table, make a dress, don't be afraid to make a mess. You can nail it, you can glue it, you can bolt it, weld, or screw it. Roll up your sleeves and make it yourself. Get some tools and build a deck, or make a tree house, what the heck. You'll be a living legend in your neighborhood. Knit yourself a winter hat, or a sweater for your hairless cat. Remember, it ain't got to be perfect to be good. You'll feel such a joyful lift when you give your friend a handmade gift that means so much more than some trifle from the mall. Make a kite or casserole. You'll grow your brain, you'll grow your soul, till you're a self-reliant badass standing tall. Go on and make it yourself, you know you can. Perfect. Take spatula or skill saw into hand. Bake a cake or build a chair. Make it funky, give it flair. You can cut it, you can paste it. You got a brain, kid, don't you waste it. It's so much fun to make it yourself. With a little help, you can make it yourself. Thank you. I stay open to creativity because I make things with my hands, and so I just had the idea that I should hire a guitar player. I've seen this done, and they stand up here, and they do the guitar part, and I do the words part. I'll workshop that. But there are a couple lyrics here I'm just going to reiterate because that couldn't have been easy to follow. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying with this song that we should turn the clock back and live like pioneers, but with just a touch of self-sufficiency, we could mitigate the deficiency and the pride of craft we've lost down through the years. I think that may be up for the Nobel Peace Prize. I think they did this year, so maybe next year. And then I just really love to say, you can cut it, you can paste it. You got a brain, kid. Don't you waste it. With a little help, you can make it yourself. That's I think the thing that I want you to remember, that of the choices available to you are the ones you can think up for yourself. They're gonna, I met a little kid earlier today who just started kindergarten, and they asked her how she liked it, and she said, well, they just keep putting paperwork in front of me. And I said, well, welcome to the world. It won't end, young lady. Until eventually, if you're lucky enough, someone will do the signing for you. But when you're doing that, when you're getting into all that paperwork, then you can also come up with an idea of your own, and don't limit yourself to the choices of the paperwork. And I believe that brings me to the end of my unprepared remarks. Thank you for putting up with me so far, and now I'd like to open the floor to questions if you have any.
Would you mind to repeat the questions into the mic when they ask them?
Yes.
Thank you.
The question was, Nick, would you like to repeat the questions into the mic? And I said yes. That's no sweat. Anyone else? Yeah, yes, sir.
I was curious, I can't quite swing a festival domino joiner. Do you have any alternative suggestions?
The question is, the Festool domino joiner is a very nice and expensive tool with which you can make wood joinery. I mean, most applications, to answer you sincerely, a much more inexpensive biscuit joiner will do the job in most cases. But I'm stubborn, and so anything that a tool is like makes work faster, I like to first learn it just in case the shit goes down and the grid is no more. Like, I can build a boat with no electricity, and so, if you have time, even on the weekends, first I would try to master hand-cut mortises and tenons. But if, at the same time, there have been times in my life when I had to make my rent with the profit of my shop, which means suddenly you have to haul ass. And so if you're moving quickly, no, a biscuit joiner will work in most applications. Now, I should say, it's been a long time since I shopped for like the latest. There may be, I shouldn't be surprised if there are like second market floating tenon machines, like a Festool. But because my shop sort of specializes in one thing, I haven't gone shopping for a long time. You bet. What's your name?
Casey.
Casey, thank you for your question, Casey. Yes, in the back, please. Take a blonde lady. Yeah? If you had your hand up, yeah, please.
We have been wanting to buy some whittling knives for our daughters. But I was wondering if you had a suggestion of what kind to buy or what age would be best.
Okay, thank you. What's your name? Julie. The question is, they're shopping for whittling knives for their daughter. What are good ones to get, and what's a good age to start? This is a great question, and it's kind of covered in the book. And anything with woodworking tools or tools in general, even though we always encourage fun in all walks of life, if you come to my shop or you go to my family's farm, the first thing people will say is, here's what's dangerous. All right, this is your first time here. That's a combine. Don't go by that part. This is an auxiliary joint. If that thing's going, stay the hell away from it. And here's the wood shop. Here are the machine. Like, you got to protect your eyes. You got to protect your ears. And obviously there's a lot of sharp steel you can cut yourself with in many ways. So it's always safety first, and that's dead serious. But a common misconception, which we talk about in the book, is that a sharp instrument is more dangerous. And it is in a sensibility, like you don't want to drop a fat, heavy, sharpened chisel on your toes. In that case, a dull chisel is preferred. But when you're actually woodworking, a nice sharp knife or chisel or tool is actually much safer if everyone knows what they're doing and how to use it. Because if a whittling knife is dull, it just means you have to use more muscle, and you're more likely to slip or somehow have a mistake where it ends up getting stuck where it doesn't want to be. And if you have a properly sharpened tool, then things behave a little more like butter. But so all of these things are important to equate yourself with the safety techniques and then how to properly sharpen these things. And so I haven't shopped for a knife. There are great websites. There are great tool sellers like Lee Nielsen and a couple Canadian companies, Veritas, that make more affordable but really nice handmade things. But one of the wonderful things about the internet these days is there are probably 24 knife makers in Kentucky that you can support for the same price, where you can like meet them and you can probably customize it, or like take them your grandpa's shovel handle and they'll turn that into a knife. You know, with the internet, I always encourage people to try and find people in your bailiwick or your neighborhood who can do these things, because the important thing, you know, unless you're doing like crazy museum level work, all you need to do is have a good piece of steel in there that you can sharpen. You know what I mean? It's not like you're buying a violin or something. And so the most important thing, I think, is to educate you and your kids with the proper techniques so one of the early projects is just turning twigs into animals. And, you know, there are just these great rules of like how you hold your material with your hand, never near where you're cutting, and you're always cutting away from your body. And it's something that you know, I'm always still learning this. Like, you take your time, and whatever it is that you're working on, because let's say you've got a big Y branch and you want to turn it into a slingshot, There are going to be directions you want to use your knife where it's hard to go away from your body. And so you very carefully learn how to do everything so that there's no chance of hurting yourself. As far as what age that comes at, I think it's definitely case dependent, you know. I've known 12-year-olds that I wouldn't trust with a wooden spoon. And you know, it all depends on the kid, but like it requires supervision, and you know, I mean, there's that to a certain extent, there's that parenting thing of like, at some point, you know, when I got my first pocket knife, they're like, you're probably gonna cut yourself, but you know, that's how you learn. So that's all we can do is lay out the safety guidelines as best we can. But I do like to clear that up, that it's better to have a sharp tool than a dull tool. Thank you, Julie. And then behind Julie is that dark curly hair? Yes, please. Hello.
I'm
Gabby.
Gabby. I was going to ask, what was the first woodworking project you remember making, or your favorite one that you made when you were little?
Well, my dad was a furniture maker, and we both are self-taught pretty much. So, you know, when I was a kid, he was making all kinds of stuff because I come from a big family, and some of them are still farming. So we were building, you know, outside carpentry projects, from you name it, from porches to decks to, you know, and I was a 8-year-old, you know, they let me shingle sometimes. But so I loved using the tools, and I loved doing stuff with my dad, like down in his basement shop. And I had shop class in school, but I didn't. I wasn't any good at most of it. It didn't really hook me. Like I loved making stuff in shop class, and making sort of art projects for my folks, but it came slowly. Like I loved the power of being able to use tools. And as a teenager, I knew I wanted to save up money. I knew I wanted to go to college, and so I got a job framing houses for a little company in my hometown. And you know, at the same time, so I was learning house carpentry, but I was around like they could tell that I took a shine to it. You know, I'm up on third-story roofs, like hammering rafters and stuff, so there's an adventurous element to it. But they took me into the trim carpenter who was doing the trim inside, and he started teaching me how to use a coping saw and like do the more persnickety stuff. And I was like, oh yeah. I think like I want to sort of master all this stuff, you know, in the years that takes. But it really was, for me, it was really slow. It wasn't until I was in my 20s, and I made a couple things. I made a girlfriend a blanket chest, and I remember I wood burned something romantic on the inside of the lid in the hopes of getting kissed. It worked. But it wasn't until in my 20s, and I had become really good at decks and like doing deck railings with decorative sort of Frank Lloyd Wright joinery and panels, that something clicked, and I said, oh shoot, I could make furniture. It sort of snuck up on me. But that said, it was more, I just loved making stuff around the house with my family and helping them. So it wasn't like I was like, Mom, today I'd like to, you know, go out in the yard and make some sculptures. It was more like Mom taught us to help in the kitchen. Mom and Dad both bake bread. Like all of these things were so fun to learn with them. And my dad would let me help on all these carpentry projects. And so I never made anything that was any good, I guess is the answer to your question. But I loved my apprenticeship as a member of my family.
I think we got time for one more quick one.
One more quick one. Yes, ma'am.
Have you made any other instruments besides the ukulele?
And what is your name?
Isla.
Isla? How do you spell it?
ISLA.
Isla. Nice to meet you. I've been to a very nice island in Scotland called Isla. but they have a Y on the end, so they're obviously wrong. I have 12 other ukuleles that are 12 bodies and 12 necks, and they're waiting for me to put them together and put the frets in them. And then when that's done, then I'm going to start making guitars, because it'd be really fun to also butcher these songs on a guitar that I made. At least then I could blame the guitar. Be like, yeah, I haven't quite got this figured out yet. But I've also made, which are in the book, I've made a lot of like whistles and like weird bad recorders. You know, if you can hollow out a piece of wood, you can make a whistle, you can make a slide whistle, you can put holes in it and ultimately refine it into a flute. And then you could make oboes and sell them for thousands of dollars. You can't miss with this book, Isla. Thank you all. I wish I could answer more questions, but I guess we're going to sign books now.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you.
You all please keep it going for Mr. Nick Offerman.